You walk into the grocery store, shelves stripped bare, prices have doubled overnight, and people are panic buying like it's 2020 all over again. But you head home, open your pantry, and pull out a jar dated 5 years ago. Still good, still safe, still feeding your family. Now, what if I told you that isn't a fantasy? It's exactly how the Amish have lived for generations. I'm Davis, and I've been deep in prepping and self-sufficiency. And let me tell you one hard lesson I've learned. Food security isn't about how much you have, it's about what you have. Because most people stock the wrong stuff. Cans that expire, boxes that bloat, food that quietly dies on your shelf. Here's the brutal truth that nobody wants to hear. If your emergency pantry depends on expiration dates, you're already losing the game. Look at what happened in Texas during the 2021 freeze. Power out, stores closed, roads blocked. The ones who lasted weren't the biggest spenders. They were the ones who had smart, long-life staples ready to go. Today, I'm sharing 11 Amish-approved foods that practically never expire. Foods that survive inflation, power cuts, and time itself. And number 9, it'll blow your mind because it's not even what most people consider food. Here's the thing. With inflation still climbing and supply chains wobbling in 2025, every day you wait costs you more. Start now and you'll turn your pantry into something priceless. Peace of mind, security, and self-reliance. Not just for you, for your family. For whatever comes next. Item 1. Honey. Look, when people talk about prepping pantries, they go on about rice, beans, and canned goods. But here's what almost nobody mentions. Honey. Yeah, the same golden stuff you drizzle on toast, except this isn't just food, it's time-proof. Honey's one of the only foods on Earth that literally never goes bad. Archaeologists have found sealed jars from ancient Egypt, thousands of years old, still perfectly edible. Think about that. While most food rots in weeks, honey outlives civilizations. And the reason's fascinating. It's got extremely low moisture and a natural acidity that kills bacteria before it even gets started. Nature engineered it for forever. Now here's where people go wrong. They grab the cheap supermarket bottles labeled honey, but half of those are blends pumped full of corn syrup. You don't want that junk. You want raw, unfiltered, pure honey. Ideally local, it tastes better, supports small producers, and it's way more potent for storage. Current prices hover around $8 to $12 for a good 16-ounce jar, depending on where you are. Sounds pricey? Not when it lasts decades, even centuries. That's value inflation can't touch. And here's the kicker. It's not just food. Raw honey's been used for wound care and antiseptic treatment for generations. In survival mode, that's priceless. Want to stretch your budget? Buy in bulk jars, then repackage into smaller, airtight glass jars. Keep them cool, dark, sealed. You're good for life. Oh, and if it crystallizes, don't toss it. That's not spoilage. Just warm it gently, and it's back to liquid gold. Now imagine this. Shelves empty, chaos outside, and you're sipping tea sweetened with something harvested 5 years ago. Still perfect, still pure, still power. Item 2. White rice. Now if honey's the sweet, eternal treasure of your pantry, this next one is the quiet workhorse that feeds nations. White rice. Look, I know, rice sounds basic. Everyone's got a bag sitting in the back of the cupboard. But here's the brutal truth. Most people have no idea how powerful properly stored white rice really is. We're talking decades of shelf life, not 5, not 10, 30+ years if you store it right. That's longer than most mortgages. The secret? Low moisture and airtight storage. When rice is sealed in mylar bags with oxygen absorbers, it's practically immortal. And here's where it gets wild. Archaeologists have found preserved grains that still cooked after centuries. Now you might be thinking, what about brown rice? Sounds healthier, right? Here's the catch. Brown rice has natural oils that spoil fast. White rice, on the other hand, had those oils milled off, giving it a near-endless shelf life. As of 2025, a 50-pound bag runs about $25 to $30. That's pennies per serving. In a crisis, it's not just food, it's currency, trade material, and survival insurance all in one. Here's the thing, rice isn't just about calories, it's about stability. During the 2020 lockdowns, global rice exports nearly froze. Prices spiked overnight. Those who had stockpiles not only saved money, they stayed calm while everyone else panicked. And if you're thinking long-term, pair it with salt and vinegar. Both last indefinitely and multiply your meal options tenfold. Just remember this, store it cool, dark, and dry. Avoid plastic tubs that trap moisture. Use mylar. Use buckets. Layer with oxygen absorbers. Because when the supply chain cracks again, and it will, you'll be the one still eating warm rice while everyone else stares at empty shelves. Simple, silent, unshakable. Item 3. Dried beans. All right, we've talked about honey for sweetness and rice for stability. But now we're getting into real survival fuel, dried beans. And I'm not talking about those soggy canned ones you forgot in the back of the pantry. I mean the raw, dry legumes that preppers and old-school homesteaders swear by. Here's the thing most people miss. Beans aren't just cheap protein. They're self-sufficiency in a bag. Because when you mix them with rice, boom, you've got a complete protein, all 9 essential amino acids. That's something even steak can't always promise. Now, the brutal truth. Most folks store beans wrong. They buy the big bag, toss it on a shelf, and assume it's fine forever. But moisture, heat, and time, those 3 silent killers, can ruin your stock. Stored properly, though, beans can last 25 to 30 years. That's not a myth. The USDA and multiple long-term storage studies back it up. Kept in mylar bags with oxygen absorbers inside sealed food-grade buckets, beans don't just survive, they thrive. Here's where it gets interesting. In 2024, the average price of dried pinto beans hovered around $1.20 per pound, black beans a bit higher, about $1.45. That's insane value when you realize 1 pound cooks up to nearly 6 cups of food. 6! That's roughly 1,500 calories and 90 grams of protein for less than $2. And if you ever doubt their longevity, remember this. NASA literally tested beans for long-duration missions. Why? Because they pack nutrition, fiber, and minerals that help your body keep going when fresh food is gone. You might be thinking, but beans get hard over time. Yeah, they do. That's natural dehydration. Still edible, still safe, you just need to soak them longer. Sometimes 12, even 24 hours. Add a little baking soda to the soak water, softens the shell, revives them beautifully. Now, let's talk practical use. You can cook them, grind them into flour for baking, or sprout them for fresh greens in an emergency. That's 3 uses, meal, flour, and greens, from one bag. Just make sure you don't buy quick cook or pre-flavored types. They're packed with additives that cut shelf life in half. Buy plain, dry, bulk. Label your buckets with the year. Rotate every decade or so. That's all it takes. Because when things get tight, beans become more than food. They're bargaining chips, nutrient powerhouses, and the backbone of every serious prepper's pantry. Cheap, powerful, indestructible, and absolutely essential if you want to outlast whatever's coming next. Item number 4, apple cider vinegar. Now, we've covered foods that feed you, but let's talk about one that can save you. Item number 4, Apple cider vinegar, the Amish pantry's quiet powerhouse. Most people think vinegar's just for salad dressing, but here's the brutal truth. It's one of the most versatile survival tools you can own. Food, medicine, cleaner, and preservative, all in one bottle. And here's what's wild. Properly stored apple cider vinegar basically never expires. I'm not exaggerating. The USDA itself calls vinegar almost indefinitely shelf-stable. Even after years, the acidity keeps bacteria and mold from growing. That's why archaeologists have found traces of vinegar in ancient amphoras, still intact after centuries. Now, let's bring it to 2025. A 16-ounce bottle of raw, unfiltered apple cider vinegar with the mother runs about $5 to $7, and you can find it almost anywhere, from Walmart to local Amish markets. Price trends have stayed stable even with inflation because the stuff's made from apples and thyme, not imported chemicals. Here's why it matters. In a grid-down situation, ACV is a multi-purpose lifesaver. Got meat you need to preserve? Vinegar kills surface bacteria. Got a scratch or bug bite? Dab it on. It's a natural antiseptic. Need to disinfect water containers, clean fruit, or even fight odor? Vinegar does it all. And here's the kicker. It improves with age. Like wine, the flavor deepens, not spoils. So while your store-bought sauces are going rancid, that jug of ACV just keeps getting stronger. Here's a practical prepper tip. Buy raw, unfiltered vinegar, the cloudy kind with the mother. That's where the live enzymes and beneficial bacteria live. Store it in a dark glass bottle, cool and out of sunlight. And don't worry if it gets cloudy or develops sediment. That's not spoilage. That's proof it's real. Want to know the crazy part? You can even make your own vinegar from leftover apple peels and sugar water. The Amish have done it for generations. Zero waste, full cycle. And when the next supply chain hiccup hits, vinegar's one of those forgotten miracle items you'll be grateful you stocked. Because it's not just about flavor, it's about function. Disinfectant, preservative, medicine, cleaner, and it lasts forever. So yeah, apple cider vinegar. Not flashy, not expensive, but in a crisis, it's worth its weight in gold, and it'll never let you down. Item 5, salt. If vinegar is your liquid gold, this next one is your white treasure. Simple, cheap, but absolutely priceless when things fall apart, salt. Now, before you roll your eyes and think, yeah, I've got plenty of that, let me stop you. Because salt isn't just a seasoning, it's one of the most strategic survival essentials you can stockpile. And the Amish know this better than anyone. They've used salt for centuries, not just to flavor food, but to preserve life itself. Before refrigeration, salt was the difference between starving in winter and thriving through it. Meat, fish, vegetables, all could be safely stored for months, even years, if packed and cured properly with salt. And here's the kicker. Salt never expires. It doesn't spoil, rot, or go bad. The only thing that can ruin it is moisture. Keep it dry and sealed, and it'll outlive you. Literally. Archaeologists have found perfectly usable salt blocks from thousands of years ago. Now here's what most people don't realize. Not all salt is created equal. Table salt, the cheap, bleached kind, is fine for short-term use, but it's been stripped of trace minerals, and it often contains additives like anti-caking agents that can absorb moisture over time. If you want real longevity and value, stockpile sea salt, kosher salt, or rock salt, pure, unrefined, and chemical-free. As of 2025, a 25-pound bag of rock salt runs about $15 to $20, depending on where you buy. That's enough to preserve hundreds of pounds of meat or fish. And for barter, salt is pure gold. When food supplies tighten, flavor and preservation become high-value commodities. Now here's where salt shines beyond the kitchen. It disinfects wounds, it helps cure hides and tan leather. It balances electrolytes in survival situations when dehydration hits. And it's a key ingredient in homemade oral rehydration solutions, the same formula WHO recommends globally. You can even make salt brine to pickle vegetables, hard-boiled eggs, or jerky, all with zero electricity. Pro tip: store your salt in airtight containers, glass jars, food-grade buckets, or vacuum-sealed bags. Keep some coarse, some fine, and even a bit of iodized salt for nutrition balance. And here's a little Amish wisdom. They say a man's wealth isn't in his coins, it's in his salt. Because when the grid's down and food's scarce, salt's not just flavor, it's survival, sanitation, and security all in one. Remember, it's cheap now, it won't be forever. Stock it deep, keep it dry, and you'll never run out of value. Item 6. Hardtack. If salt keeps your food alive, this next one keeps you alive when everything else runs out. Hardtack. Now, if you've never heard of it, picture a simple, rock-hard biscuit. Nothing fancy, just flour, water, and salt. That's it. No preservatives, no chemicals, no nonsense. And yet it can last decades. Hardtack is what sailors, soldiers, and pioneers used to survive long journeys with no refrigeration. It's been found in Civil War museums, still intact after 150 years. That's not rumor, that's historical fact. Here's the crazy part. It's so tough, it earned the nickname Toothbreaker, but that's exactly why it lasts. Low moisture, baked until bone dry, and sealed airtight, bacteria, mold, or insects don't stand a chance. Now let's talk cost. In 2025, you can make a full batch, about 20 pieces, for under $3. Just mix 2 cups of flour, 1 cup of water, and half a tablespoon of salt. Roll it thin, bake it twice until it's completely dry. That's it. No yeast, no oil. Just survival simplicity. When stored in Mylar or vacuum-sealed bags, hardtack can last 25 to 50 years, depending on humidity. Some preppers even store it with oxygen absorbers for near indefinite shelf life. The Amish still make versions of it for travel, fieldwork, and long-term storage, sometimes called journey bread. Now here's how it works in practice. Drop a piece in hot broth or coffee and it softens up beautifully. You can crumble it into soups, fry it in butter, or use it as an emergency energy base. 1 small square gives you 75 to 100 calories, mostly from carbs, the kind of slow, clean fuel your body needs when things go south. And it's not just a food, it's a psychological safety net. When the power's out, when supplies run low, when morale is collapsing, having something simple, solid, and filling can mean everything. A quick tip: store hardtack in airtight containers or vacuum-sealed bags and keep it away from humidity. If it ever gets soft, you can rebake it to restore its hardness. It's the only baked good that basically resets itself. Now, most people overlook hardtack because it's not exciting. No flavor, no color, no marketing hype. But when you're 3 weeks into a crisis, flavor won't matter. Endurance will. This is the kind of food that built armies, crossed oceans, and settled frontiers. And it'll do the same for you when modern comfort disappears. Cheap, indestructible, time-tested. That's hardtack, the ultimate survival bread. Item 7. Baking soda. We've talked about food that feeds you, food that preserves, and food that fuels. But this next one, it protects. Item number 7, baking soda, the humble white powder that's been saving lives and cleaning homes for generations. Here's the thing. Most people only think of baking soda as something for cookies or cleaning fridges. But the Amish and longtime preppers know it's one of the most multi-purpose survival tools you can own. Let's start with the basics. Chemically known as sodium bicarbonate, baking soda doesn't expire. It can lose a bit of rise power over time, sure, but it never spoils. Even the FDA lists it as indefinitely shelf-stable if stored dry. That means a single pound you buy today could still be working for you in 2045. And the price? Practically nothing. In 2025, you can buy a 1-pound box for under $2 or grab a 10-pound bulk bag for less than $10. That's insane value when you realize just how many problems this one product solves. Here's where it earns its keep. In a grid-down world, you can use baking soda for cleaning, deodorizing, oral hygiene, first aid, and even food preservation. Got heartburn and no medicine? Mix half a teaspoon in water. It neutralizes stomach acid instantly. Need to brush your teeth without toothpaste? It's a natural cleaner and whitener. Run out of soap? Baking soda and vinegar together cut through grease and bacteria better than most store cleaners. And here's something most people don't know. You can even use it to extinguish small grease fires. Just toss it on the flame and it snuffs out oxygen immediately. The Amish have used it for decades as a deodorizer, stain remover, and even insect bite relief. That's right, mix it with a little water, apply it to a sting, and the pain fades fast. Here's the key. Keep it dry and sealed. Moisture is the only enemy. Store it in airtight containers, mylar bags, or glass jars away from humidity. And if you ever doubt its power, remember, this one little box replaces dozens of modern products that disappear fast in a crisis. Toothpaste, cleaner, fire extinguisher, antacid, odor remover, all in one. So yeah, baking soda might not look impressive on a shelf, but when everything else runs out, this $2 box becomes priceless. Simple chemistry, infinite uses, zero expiration. That's baking soda, the unsung hero of every real prepper's pantry. Item 8. Dried corn or cornmeal. Now, we've covered food that feeds, heals, and preserves. But now let's talk about the one crop that built civilizations and still feeds half the planet: corn. More specifically, dried corn and cornmeal. Now, the Amish have relied on corn for generations, not just as animal feed, but as a staple for humans, too. And here's what makes it priceless for preppers. It's cheap, versatile, and nearly immortal when stored right. Let's break it down. Whole dried corn, the kind used for grinding, can last 25 to 30 years if sealed airtight and kept cool. That's not marketing hype, that's tested survival science. Grain specialists have found samples stored for decades that still grind and cook perfectly fine. In 2025, bulk dried corn sells for around $20 to $25 per 50-pound bag, and cornmeal around $15. That's enough calories to feed a family for weeks. And when you realize 1 pound of cornmeal gives you nearly 1,600 calories, you start to understand why ancient cultures treated corn like gold. Now, you might be wondering, why not just buy flour? Because here's the brutal truth. Wheat flour goes rancid fast. It's got oils that oxidize. Cornmeal, especially if it's degerminated, meaning the oily germs removed, has an almost indefinite shelf life when sealed right. That's why the Amish keep sacks of it in cool cellars, dry, dark, untouched, and it stays good for decades. And the versatility? Unreal. You can grind it coarse for cornbread or polenta, fine for pancakes or mush, or even pop it for snacks. You can thicken soups, make tortillas, or mix it with honey and water for an instant high-energy survival meal. Now, here's something most people don't know. Dried corn isn't just food, it's a seed bank. You can plant it if it's untreated, turning food storage into next year's harvest. That's generational prepping. Pro tip: if you're storing cornmeal, vacuum seal it or freeze it for 48 hours before long-term storage. That kills any latent pests before sealing. Keep it in mylar bags with oxygen absorbers and store in buckets, and you're set for decades. So yeah, corn might not look glamorous, but it's pure survival math. Cheap, calorie-dense, multi-use. It fills bellies, fuels work, and even regrows itself. When the shelves are empty and the power's out, corn's the quiet golden currency that'll keep you going. It's not just food, it's resilience in a sack. Item 9. Apple cider vinegar. Now, if there's one item that quietly bridges the gap between food and medicine, it's this one. Apple cider vinegar, or ACV as most people call it. Here's what's crazy. The Amish have been using this stuff for centuries before it became trendy on TikTok or wellness blogs, and for good reason. It's cheap, powerful, and when stored right, it basically never expires. Let's start with the basics. Real apple cider vinegar is made from fermented apples, nature's way of turning sugar into acid. That acidity, it's what keeps it stable for years, even decades. According to modern data, sealed and stored in a cool, dark place, ACV can last indefinitely. You might see a little cloudiness or mother form at the bottom over time, but that's not a spoilage. That's life. That's raw fermentation doing its job. And the price? Still dirt cheap. In 2025, you can grab a 16-ounce bottle for around $4 to $6 or a whole gallon for under $20 if you buy local or in bulk. That's pennies per use for something that can clean wounds, preserve food, balance digestion, and even disinfect surfaces. Now here's the thing most people overlook. ACV isn't just a condiment. It's a medical kit, a cleaning agent, and a food preservative all in one. The Amish use it for everything, mixing it in water for energy, rinsing fruits and veggies, soothing sore throats, and even using it as a mild antiseptic. In a grid-down world, that versatility becomes gold. You can use it to pickle vegetables, make salad dressings, treat minor infections, and even help purify water when things get rough. It's acidic enough to kill many bacteria on contact, and that's without refrigeration, electricity, or fancy packaging. Here's a small pro tip. Always choose raw, unfiltered ACV with the mother, that cloudy sediment at the bottom. That's where the probiotics and enzymes live. Store it in dark glass bottles or food-safe plastic away from sunlight. Light breaks down its strength over time. And don't underestimate its barter power. In a crisis, a bottle of apple cider vinegar could trade for soap, sugar, or even medicine. So yeah, it smells sharp, tastes intense, and might not look glamorous. But this humble golden liquid is a disinfectant, digestive aid, preservative, and healer wrapped into one bottle. When the pharmacy's closed and the grocery shelves are bare, ACV quietly says, "I've got you." Simple, natural, immortal. That's apple cider vinegar, the Amish survival elixir that never dies. Item 10. Salt. You probably got some sitting on your counter right now, just a simple shaker of salt. But here's what most people never realize. This humble white crystal isn't just seasoning, it's civilization in a jar. Think about it. Wars were fought over salt. Entire trade routes, kingdoms, and economies were built around it. And for good reason. It's one of the only substances on Earth that's truly eternal. I'm not exaggerating. Salt doesn't rot, doesn't decay, doesn't attract pests. As long as you keep it dry, it will literally last forever. There are salt deposits underground that have been untouched for hundreds of millions of years, still perfectly good to eat. That's older than the pyramids. Now let's talk practicality. In a survival pantry, salt isn't optional, it's critical. You need it to preserve meat, cure fish, pickle vegetables, and even tan hides. Without it, traditional food storage breaks down fast. That's why every serious prepper or Amish family keeps pounds of it, not just for taste, but for survival. And the best part? It's cheap. As of 2025, you can get a 50-pound bag of pure salt for around $15 to $20. That's a lifetime supply for most families. And unlike rice or beans, you don't need special storage, just a dry spot and a sealed container. Now here's where it gets interesting. Salt isn't just about food. It's about health and hygiene. In tough times, you can use it to make saline rinses for wounds, gargles for sore throats, and even salt scrubs for cleaning skin and tools. It's nature's disinfectant, simple, effective, and timeless. But there's one trap people fall into: buying iodized salt or table salt only. Iodized salt is great for everyday use, but it can clump or degrade faster in humidity. For long-term storage, go with pure sea salt or mined rock salt, the kind without additives. And if you're prepping for barter, package it in small jars or vacuum-sealed bags. In a crisis, a single pound of salt could trade for coffee, canned food, or batteries. So yeah, it's not flashy, it's not expensive, but salt is power. The power to preserve, protect, and even heal. The ancients called it white gold for a reason. When everything else fades, salt endures. Dry, pure, eternal. Item 11. Dried beans. All right, we've covered the sweet, honey, the sharp, vinegar, the eternal, salt, but this last one, it's the muscle of your pantry. Dried beans, the true backbone of long-term survival. Now, before you roll your eyes thinking, beans? Really? Hear me out. These tiny seeds have kept civilizations alive through droughts, famines, and wars. And they're still one of the most nutrient-dense, longest-lasting foods you can stock. Here's what makes beans unbeatable: protein plus fiber plus shelf life. That's the survival trifecta. A single pound gives you roughly 1,500 calories and 90 grams of protein. And when stored right, those calories can last for 25 to 30 years. That's not a typo. 30 years. Let's talk science for a second. According to Grand Teton Ancient Grains, properly sealed beans stored in mylar bags with oxygen absorbers at stable temperatures can stay edible for decades. They might take longer to cook as they age, but they won't spoil. And that's the key difference between living comfortably in a crisis and scrambling for food that's gone bad. In 2025, prices are still reasonable, around $1.50 to $2 per pound, depending on the type. Pintos, black beans, navy beans, and lentils, all inexpensive, all powerful. That's pennies per serving for a complete protein source that doesn't need refrigeration or complicated prep. Now, imagine this. It's been weeks without reliable groceries. Shelves are empty again. You've seen this before. You walk to your pantry, open a bucket, and see rows of sealed beans from years ago. They're still perfect. You soak them overnight, add a bit of salt and rice, maybe a splash of apple cider vinegar, and suddenly you've got a full hot meal that can feed your family for days. That's not convenience, that's security. Here's a tip. Rotate what you eat. Don't just stash beans and forget them. Cook a batch every few months to keep the rotation fresh. Buy in bulk, 25 or 50-pound sacks, then repackage into smaller mylar bags with absorbers. Keep them cool, dry, and away from sunlight. And if you're thinking about barter value, few foods trade better than beans. They're compact, nutrient-rich, and universal. When the economy shakes or inflation bites, beans become more than food. They become currency. So yeah, they might not look exciting, but remember this. Rice fills you up. Salt preserves your food. Beans keep you alive. They're the quiet, humble powerhouse of every Amish cellar and every smart prepper's pantry. Affordable, reliable, practically immortal. In uncertain times, beans aren't just food. They're freedom in a sack. Now that you've got your core stockpile, let's talk about the system that makes it work, because food that sits too long without rotation eventually becomes waste, not security. Here's a strategy the Amish have mastered for generations: systematic rotation. It's simple. Buy on sale, label the date clearly, and always use the oldest first, then replace it with fresh stock. Set calendar reminders every 3 to 6 months. Digital or old-school paper doesn't matter. The key is consistency. A $10 bag of rice today might cost $18 next year, so you're not just maintaining food security, you're hedging against inflation. Now here's the next level play: cross-use for barter. When things get tough, everyday staples become currency. Pure honey, whole spices, dried fruit. They're lightweight, high value, and instantly tradable. In a crisis economy, a small jar of honey or a pouch of coffee can be worth more than cash. So don't just store food for yourself, store smart trade items that hold value. But let's clear up some major mistakes that even experienced preppers make. Mistake number 1. I'll buy the biggest bucket, stash it in the attic, and forget it. That's not prepping. That's wasting money. Heat and humidity are silent killers. They break down nutrients, attract pests, and turn your investment into compost. The fix? Keep your stockpile in the coolest, darkest, driest space you have, a basement, underbed bins, or an interior closet. Monitor it like you'd monitor your savings account. And here's another big one. I'll just buy branded survival meals and call it a day. Wrong move. Those are pricey, limited, and often full of ingredients your family doesn't even like. Instead, build your pantry with real, familiar foods, the ones you actually cook and eat. Rotate them into your daily meals. That way, your stockpile stays fresh, your budget stays balanced, and your family stays comfortable even if the world outside isn't. Because prepping isn't just about storage, it's about sustainability. Look, a few minutes ago, you were thinking about how fragile your pantry really is.